All right. If you're watching the last video, I just decided let's split this up. So if you want to take a break or whatever, then you can come back and learn this. So the different tracts. So what is a tract, right? What is the definition of a tract? A tract is white matter in the central nervous system. What is white matter? White matter is the axons. What are axons? Electrical wires sending information back and forth. If it is a tract, it's just sending information. Now, if we say it's an ascending tract, what does that mean? It's going up. What type of information goes up? Only sensory or afferent information. Now, as I was saying before in the other video, there's different types of sensory information that you can send to your brain. You can send tickle, touch, itch, pressure, pain, temperature. You have something called proprioception. Does anybody know what proprioception is? If you think about proprioception, I want you to hold your hands out in front of you right now. And then I want you to close your eyes. Do your hands disappear? No, they don't. You know exactly where they are. How do you know where your hands are? You can't see them. You can't smell them. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. What were you cooking for dinner or eating? You can't hear them. So how do you know your hands are here? Nobody just like closes their eyes and goes and starts screaming because their hands disappear. That's because you have proprioception. You have receptors that are in here that are telling you where your body is in space at all times. That's how people can like do balance beam and they can do all these crazy things, is because you can't move your body without knowing where you are in space. So we have proprioceptive information that travels up to our brain from our joints and our muscles. So we've got all these different modalities. They are going to take different elevators up to the brain, to the different cortices that we have that are going to process that information. So the first one that we're going to talk about is pain and temperature. So pain and temperature is going to travel up the spinothalamic tract. So if we look right here, we see spinothalamic tract. It is right here. That sensory information. So say somebody put an ice cube on you, right? That is going to travel up a sensory nerve. So where's it going to go? So the nerve, the mixed nerve is coming in. It hits the intervertebral foramen. It passes through the hole. Now it splits into anterior and posterior, or dorsal and ventral. Which way does sensory information come in? It goes dorsally. And then what does it do? It goes to the dorsal root ganglia, which is this little bulge right here. That is the soma of that. Now what is it going to do? It's going to travel up. Now, remember, in your body, your left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. So if somebody has a stroke on their left side, their right side is not going to be able to move, right? If it's in that motor cortex. The same thing happens with sensory information, but the sensory information decussates at different places. So what's going to happen is that it's going to cross over and it's going to decussate usually immediately, and then it's going to go into the lateral spinothalamic tract. And then it is going to travel up that tract, which is just axons, up to your brain. And it's going to go all the way up to your parietal cortex, your somatosensory cortex, and your parietal lobe. And it's going to say, hey, there's something cold on you. Or somebody sticks you with a pin. Then you have the cuneate and gracile fasciculus. These are called your dorsal columns. So they call them the dorsal columns because they're on the dorsal part of your spine, and they look like columns. There's two parts. There is the cuneate and the gracile fasciculus right here. Now, what do? They are going to send discriminative touch, vibration, and I can't believe somebody left this off, most importantly, proprioception. Proprioception. I'm the world's worst speller, guys. Proprioception. Remember what I said? So let's imagine I'm closing my eyes. I have sensory information. I know where this is in space. I can point to it. My joints are sending that information. So that sensory information is going to come in the dorsal horn, and then it's going to go up. It usually goes up ipsilaterally, and then it crosses over up in the medulla later. And that's going to travel up, and it's going to tell your parietal cortex, my hand is right here. I can never remember which is which. I know that the arm is going to be most laterally and the legs are going to be most medially. And you can think of that if you're standing up, your arms are more laterally, your legs are more medially. But it really, and so what does this mean? Like, why is this important? You want to know like a practical application? Well, I had a patient a couple years ago. Patient came in, he came in for pain, but he was also telling me that he was losing his balance in the shower. And I said, "Do you lose your balance throughout the day?" He's like, "No, not really, just kind of when I close my eyes." I was like, "Well, that's pretty interesting." And so what I did was I took a tuning fork and I put it on his lower extremities. And I have him close his eyes and I take a tuning fork and it's vibrating, right? That's what it's vibrating. And I put it on his toes. And I said, "Tell me when you feel this." Put it on him. It's like, "Tell me when you feel it." I'm like, "You don't feel that?" He's like, "Feel what?" Huh. My man has lost vibration sense in his lower extremities. Why is that? Well, it could be a lot of things. Maybe he's got diabetes. Maybe he's got neuropathy in his feet. Nope, doesn't have diabetes, doesn't have neuropathy. He still has like, I could still prick him with a pin and he can still feel it, but he can't feel vibration. So what does that mean? And how does that help me understand him losing his balance? Well, what pathway does vibration go up? It goes up the dorsal columns, right? What else goes up there? Proprioception. So what is proprioception? It tells you where your body is in space. So this guy, when you're standing up, you have three systems that are going to hold you upright. You got your eyes, your ears, and you got the proprioception from your muscles and your joints. And they all connect in the brain and they say, this is where we are in space. So when he's standing there in the shower, he's got his eyes and his ears and he's got this stuff in his legs, supposedly telling him where he is in space. Now he takes away the visual input by closing his eyes to wash his hair. All of a sudden he falls over. And that's what he did in clinic. Why is that? Well, we're taking away the visual input. He was relying solely on his visual input to keep him balanced. He didn't have any proprioception coming up through this area, and evidenced by his lack of vibration sense. So what did I do? I ordered an MRI of his neck and his back. And what did we see on his MRI? We saw a big old osteophyte sticking into the posterior, which is a bone. It's like a bone spur sticking into his dorsal, like sticking out into that area, into the canal, pushing on those dorsal columns. So he was getting cervical myelopathy, which was damaging this part of his spinal cord. And so he couldn't feel vibration and he didn't know where he was in space, and it was making him fall over. If you know anatomy and physiology, then like that makes sense to you. Like you can understand that when a patient comes in. Like it seems like magic when you're doing it, but like all it is knowing anatomy. Same thing with pain and temperature. Somebody loses temperature on one side, maybe they've got something going on with the spinal thalamic tract. Okay, there's one more uh, tract that we really need to learn about, and that is the spinocerebellar tract. So, what does spinocerebellar tract do? It sends information about proprioception. And you're going to be like, well, professor, you just said that the dorsal columns, the cruciate cuneate fasciculus, are the ascending tracts, or that send proprioceptive information. Yes, sends it to your parietal lobe, which is your conscious awareness of where you are in space. The spinocerebellar tract, it sends it to the cerebellum. This is sending it to the brain, the cortex. This is sending it to the brain. So that's conscious awareness. This is sending it to the cerebellum. What is the cerebellum? The cerebellum is that little part of your brain that makes you good at dancing. It makes you coordinated. You ever seen anybody do a roadside sobriety test? When they do this? What are they testing? They do finger to nose. They do a tandem gait. They do have you take, not you, hopefully, eyes go back and forth. Those aren't tests invented by the police. Those are tests that were taken from neurology, testing the integrity of a cerebellum. I don't know if you guys remember from the last chapter, IPSPs, GABA works really strongly in the cerebellum. So when you drink alcohol, it turns your cerebellum down. It inhibits that. It takes it away from threshold. And so as it inhibits your cerebellum, you can no longer be good at what you're doing. Like you can't be coordinated. So what happens is your cerebellum doesn't work. You're trying to get your finger coordinated to land on your nose and you boop, you miss. Or you tandem walk and you kind of fall over. These are all things that people have when they have cerebellar disease. So alcohol works really good in the cerebellum. It turns the volume down, makes it go to sleep. And so now you can't be coordinated. That's why people slur their speech. That's why people fall over when they're drunk. So you if you're going to coordinate information of how you move, you better have proprioceptive information. So that's what the spinocerebellar tract is going to do. It's going to send proprioceptive information to your cerebellum so that you can dance real good. Something you should look at if you ever get lost or confused and you want to know if it's a ascending or descending tract, look at the name. Spine to the thalamus, which is in your brain. That's going up. If you look at spine to the cerebellum, it's going up. Spine to the tectum, it's going up. Now we have descending tracts. What type of information is coming down from the brain? It's going to be motor information. So what are we looking at for motor information? They're basically one tract, the lateral and anterior corticospinal tract. Look at this. Cortex to the spine. It's going down. So it's going to send motor information. All motor information goes there. So say I want to write something. That's going to be the corticospinal tract. I want to pick something up. I'm sending information from my central gyrus of my frontal lobe, where my motor cortex is located. We're going to learn that in the CNS chapter. It's going to go all the way down through my brainstem, down my spinal cord. It's going to travel down the spinal cord to the ventral horn, where it's going to synapse with another neuron. And then what's it going to do? It's going to come out what part of the spinal cord? The ventral horn. It's going to travel down the corticospinal tract in the spinal cord. So where we go like this, boop, and then what's it going to do? It's going to go and synapse with another neuron, and that motor neuron is going to go out your ventral horn, and then it's going to have your muscle contract. Action potential all the way down, calcium, right? Release of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine binds to the receptor. Influx of sodium depolarizes the cell, causes release of calcium. Calcium binds to troponin. Troponin, tropomyosin, they get out of the way. Actin and myosin do their thing, muscle contraction. It's the descending tract. That's really the only one that you need to know. Don't worry so much about the reticulospinal, the rubrospinal. These are involved in posture. And vestibulospinal tract is involved in balance. All right, so what do you need to know? There are tracts. What are tracts? White matter. What's white matter? Sending information back and forth. We have ascending and descending. Ascending is going up, descending is going down. If it's going up, it's sensory. If it's going down, it's motor. What are the three tracts in the spinal cord that are sensory? Spinal thalamic, the posterior columns, which is the gracilis cuneo fasciculus, and the spinocerebellar tract. Spinal thalamic tract is what? Pain and temperature. Gracilis cuneo fasciculus, discriminative touch, vibration, proprioceptive information to the cortex. What does the spinocerebellar tract? Proprioceptive information to the cerebellum. What's the descending tract you need to know? Corticospinal tract. What is descending? Motor information. All right, I think that is it for this.